2.1 Matter. Key ideas from this section: how can matter be classified? Why are carbon and copper classified as elements? How are elements related to compounds? And what is the difference between a pure substance and a mixture? Every sample of matter is either an element, a compound, or a mixture. So everything in the universe is made up of matter, and every sample of matter can be classified as one of those three things: element, compound, or mixture. Matter is anything that has mass and takes up space. So the first category are elements. Each element is made up of one kind of atom. And so some examples of elements are carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, hydrogen. And so each carbon element, or carbon as an element, is made up of only one kind of atom, which are carbon atoms. Oxygen as an element is made up of only one kind of atom, which are oxygen atoms. An element is a substance that cannot be separated or broken down into simpler substances by chemical means. So an element is the simplest type of substance, and it cannot be broken down into simpler substances. An atom is the smallest unit of an element that maintains the properties of that element. So you can break down an element down into just one single atom of that element, and that's as far as you can break it down and still keep the properties of the element. This is a pie chart showing the percentage of elements in the human body. So as you can see, oxygen makes up the majority of the human body, 65%. And then it kind of goes down from there. Carbon is next, 17.5%, and so on. Elements, we represent them by symbols, chemical symbols. And so on the periodic table, those symbols are either one or two letters. So for carbon, the symbol is just a capital C. For oxygen, the symbol is a capital O. Atoms that make up a molecule act as a unit. And so a molecule is a group of atoms that are held together by chemical forces. A molecule is the smallest unit of matter that can exist by itself and retain all of a substance's chemical properties. So that's a new word. Elements are made up of one type of atom. Those one type of atoms can come together and form a molecule. So a lot of times, like oxygen, we call it O2. So two oxygen atoms can come together, and so there's still just one kind of atom. Two oxygen atoms come together and they make a molecule of oxygen. And so that is a group of oxygen atoms that are held together by chemical forces, and they exist as a single unit. Next is a compound. Compounds also consist of molecules. Each molecule of a compound contains two or more elements that are chemically combined. Elements combine chemically to form a compound. A compound is a substance made up of atoms of two or more different elements joined by chemical bonds. So with an element, the molecule would be two atoms of the same thing, two or three atoms of the same thing. But a compound, a molecule, is different elements. So an example of a compound would be CO2, carbon dioxide. And so in CO2, one molecule of CO2 has a carbon and two oxygens. It's got multiple types of elements, multiple types of atoms that are chemically bonded. One thing to remember about a compound is that they are always bonded the same way. They have the same shape. So CO2 is always going to have the same shape as every other CO2 molecule. Compounds have unique properties. We use chemical formulas to represent them. So for an element, we represent it with a chemical symbol, which is just a letter, one or two letters. A compound we represent with a formula. So for elements, carbon and oxygen, you have C and O. but the chemical formula for carbon dioxide, which has carbon and oxygen in it, is CO2. So that is a formula. This is the chemical formula for indigo. And so you have the symbol and then you have a number. And so the number that comes after that symbol is going to tell you how many atoms of that element. So you've got C16, that means 16 carbon atoms, H10, 10 hydrogen atoms, N2, 2 nitrogens, and O2, 2 oxygens. So this whole thing is showing the chemical formula for indigo. So we have pure substances and mixtures. Elements and compounds are pure substances, but mixtures are not. And so far we've talked about elements and compounds. Those two things are considered pure substances. Mixtures are not. A pure substance is a sample of matter that's either a single element or a single compound that has definite chemical and physical properties. Definite means that it does not change. It is always the same. So the chemical and physical properties for carbon are always the same. The chemical and physical properties for oxygen are always the same. The chemical and physical properties for CO2, carbon dioxide, are always the same. If I take a sample of any of those things from here in Hazard, Kentucky, and then I take another sample from Antarctica, the two samples would be exactly the same. Now, a mixture, on the other hand, is a combination of two or more substances that are not chemically combined. So a mixture's properties can vary, which means if I take a sample of something that's a mixture, like air is a mixture of gases. If I take a sample of air from here in Hazard, Kentucky, and compare that sample of air to air from Antarctica, they're going to be different. There's going to be little differences between those two samples. Mixtures are classified by how thoroughly they mix together, or substances mix together. The first type of mixture is a heterogeneous mixture. And this would be when substances aren't mixed uniformly and are not evenly distributed. So if you have a mixture and you can see all the different pieces within it, that will be a heterogeneous mixture. One example that we always talk about is trail mix. And so in trail mix, you have all these different things in the mixture, and you can easily see the different parts of the mixture. You could easily pick out all the different types of pieces of the trail mix and see that it's not uniformly distributed. The next type of mixture is a homogeneous mixture. And in a homogeneous mixture, substances are evenly distributed and the mixture looks the same throughout. So if it's something that looks exactly the same all throughout it, whether it's a liquid, a solid, or a gas like air, you can't really see it, but it looks the same. That's a homogeneous mixture. Another example would be hand sanitizer. And so in the hand sanitizer, you can't really see the different parts. It's all evenly distributed. It's a homogeneous mixture. Another way we classify mixtures would be if they can or cannot be mixed, or can or cannot mix. And so miscible means that it's two things that can mix together. Salt and water will mix together, so those things are miscible. Versus immiscible, which are substances that cannot be mixed or will not mix together. Oil and water are immiscible. They will not mix together. Gases can mix with liquids. And so a lot of times when we talk about mixtures, we talk about things that are generally liquids. But you can have mixtures of gases with liquids that would be like carbonation in soda. And so the bubbles that come up whenever you open a can of pop, that is a gas that has been mixed with that liquid. So this is just a picture to kind of show all of the different types of mixtures, and we interact with these every single day. First off, this girl's shirt is a heterogeneous mixture of fibers. You have cotton fibers and polyester fibers that are mixed together to make the fabric of her shirt. The salad she's eating is a heterogeneous mixture. And so it's something that you can see the different parts of. They're not evenly distributed. There's whatever this thing is, maybe a very large cucumber, whatever it is. There's one of these over here, but not over here. There's a space here with no tomatoes. It's not an even distribution. This is some kind of a salad dressing, and so it's a homogeneous mixture. When I look at that, I can't see the different pieces or the different parts. And so zoomed in on the molecules, you can see it's a mixture of acetic acid, which is vinegar, and water molecules that are mixed together. This is a cup of water, and so it's a pure substance. It's a compound. And so all the water molecules look exactly the same, and that would be a compound of water.